So welcome everybody to, this is our second fire pit chat because fireside chats were like so last year and everybody has to sit outside now. So we're doing a fire pit chat and we are pleased to have Gray Scott with us today from Muller Honda. Welcome.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me.
And you can see that both of us here, we have like our pre-pandemic headshots up here and our contact information. And now we have our pandemic outfits here. It is cold outside, so we got we have libations and
Get your
everything.
hat on.
That's right.
Cool.
Okay, enough of that foolishness. So let's get going.
All right, and also, if anyone who's listening wants to connect on LinkedIn, you can find me usually by my name. You won't find me by dealership for obvious reasons, but please feel free to connect anytime.
Absolutely. And so number one question is always, is it recorded? Yes, it's recorded. We will share this out afterwards. And if you have questions at any point, by all means, throw them in the Q&A and I'll be kind of periodically checking into that and we can throw questions towards Gray as they come in. So while we've got questions to ask him, by all means, put yours in there as well and we'll ask them. We've got a few broad topics, which you can see here. They were part of the sign up. So none of this is not truly surprising here. So with that being said, I'm going to just hop out and let's say, Gray, tell us about your background. How did you end up here?
Sure, man. Thanks for having me again. So my background is I've been with this particular dealership between the two Honda stores in the group for 4 years as of the end of this month. And prior to going into the brick and mortar, and a little consulting, I was in another brick and mortar just prior to that. But I got my feet grounded at a tech company, dealer.com, well before the acquisition into the Cox family. And that was a little over 10 years ago. Worked for various vendors and technology partners, as well as an agency, consulting with dealers, setting up the solutions that would drive results, as well as the technology stack that would also help them to maintain their marketing edge, as well as their advantage in their market space. Did that for about a solid 5 or 6, and then got into the brick and mortar for the sole purpose that I felt like when I was on the other side, selling and consulting, there was just so much that dealers don't know in terms of how this stuff is actually bought and sold, margins involved, true cost of the technology. And my thoughts were, if I went brick and mortar, I could save a dealer a lot of money, give us a competitive advantage, and really take the reins of marketing in a direction that most people don't have that opportunity on the inside. And that's when I wound up at Mancarry and then over to Muller Honda.
Yeah, and so you're hitting upon something there. So your philosophy about marketing for automobile dealerships is a little bit different than other folks. Like, how would you describe it? And what do you think is different? Why?
You got to stay. It's like anything. You want to stand out. I think the big problem with dealers and working with so many dealers for so long is that we all get stuck in the rut. A lot of dealers just want to push, themselves or some kind of a green screen video. It's not really any kind of real innovative marketing or message. In my mind, marketing, you need to stand out amongst the clutter, right? Whether it's display advertising, whether it's your pay-per-click and your ad copy, whether it's the creative for video, which was essentially YouTube, social, now OTT and connected or TV. And so when you think about the overall marketing mix and the varying levels of the funnel, ideally at the dealership tier 3 level, we really want to do is focus on those bottom funnel shoppers while still maintaining some presence at the top and the middle. And the way I approach the marketing space with automotive is at the tier 3 level, let tier 1 handle the product and the brand, right? That's what they spend millions and millions of dollars on. On the tier 2 level, let them focus on the regionalized focus of the brand and maybe the message and some of those offers. And then on the tier 3 level, let's really focus on us. We're the brand. We're selling you us. Why do you want Muller Honda instead of XYZ, ABC, DEF Honda? And what is that we bring to the table? Or how do we stand out? And so with a lot of the marketing that I've been able to do with this group has been, from a creative perspective, it stands out and we've invested some money in it, but at the same time, also being aware of our surroundings and our environment to be the most effective with our message.
Got it.
And I think back, what is the whole purpose of this conversation? Is to talk about a little about 2020, because what a year to remember or forget, right? And so I think back to March, we get back from NADA. Everybody had the NADA flu for a week or two. I didn't hear.
Yeah, it was the flu, right? Not
yes,
the
COVID. I can't say it's COVID, but everybody has that NADA recovery period. And then March hits and we're all just like, yeah, let's go. And then all of a sudden the world just starts, you see these walls coming in from around you. And so kind of watching, the markets and behavior and the numbers from international reporting over to the East Coast, New York City, I could see literally this implosion occurring within the automotive space, right? From whether it's consumers, not even trust, but safety. So coming in March, we decided we were going to start pulling back budget big time. March, I think it was like March 6th, March 7th. I was able to retain over 30 grand variable budget for one store, it's about 60 grand total between the two stores. And as soon as we're in Illinois, based out of Chicago, as soon as Illinois laid down a shelter order and we were an essential business, my thoughts were, okay, we're open. We need to let people know that we're here. And what can we do? So our messaging immediately shifted and we pivoted from Muller excitement, kind of like come see us, family, this and that, to let's show the consumers in our marketplace, what are we doing? How do you know you're going to be safe when you visit our dealership? And you see it now in all advertising. You see mask wearing and social distancing and so on. But within 48 hours of our shelter order taking effect, I had a videographer produced a spot done where we were showing customers that we've been here for 40 years. We're still going to be here for you. We had N95 masks. We had social distancing. We had plastic covering for seat covers and steering wheels. We had sanitation spray, everything you couldn't get at the supermarket. We seem to have, right? And so we're able to push that message out and stay in touch with our market as far as this fear. The thought was, oh my gosh, if I leave my house, am I going to catch this disease that's going to kill everyone? We didn't know anything that we know now about it. And so making sure that we're able to connect on that emotional level versus just the business needs level. So being able to connect emotionally allowed the business to resume and to build that trust that they can still come in and service the vehicles.
Yeah. Did you get a sense from your customers, like how quickly they adopted or embraced that message, or?
We hit it pretty hard for the first few weeks going into April. And I believe it was embraced pretty firmly. Our business was pretty decent from the service side. Now in April, we probably had our worst month sales wise in 10 years. And that was to be expected. But we went from April of kind of messaging, we're here for you, here's what we're doing, here's the process that we have, here's the steps in play, to now all of a sudden in May, some states were extending shelter orders. Illinois extended a shelter order for another 30 days. So now we pushed into shopping online and how we were going about with shopping online, whether it was Zoom meetings, whether it was, doing a full digital retailing suite on our website, that was an option. And we ran that for a few weeks, just letting people know that we're still here for you for sales. And then towards the middle of May, just before Memorial Day, as the sentiment consumer, the consumer sentiment built up to where they felt more comfortable leaving their homes, whether it was mask, glove, whatever they were doing at the time, they felt like, okay, I've been home for 45 days. I can venture out with some safety precautions. We started pushing the delivery messaging. And I believe that the 3-part series and the timeline of which we launched them allowed us to maintain a pretty decent advantage in the marketplace. Year over year, we grew 3% market share, which is in a pandemic, not a bad number at all. And I think it was because we were so in touch with the market and our community that we weren't slamming save 20% or 25% on all services. We were still showing what you can expect to experience when you come in.
Yeah, and you guys have some creative ideas now on what you're doing to continue to adapt to the pandemic. You mentioned one of those earlier. What's going on?
Absolutely. So, you got to think outside the box. And that's really where, me being in-house versus at an agency allows me to thrive and us to thrive, because I'm kind of that internal agency. So one of the programs that we're launching is really, it's going to be going after restaurants. Right now, restaurants are suffering because they're all stuck with these outdoor seating only. Somewhere like Chicago, where there's snow on my porch and 30 degrees, who really wants to sit outside in a makeshift tent with heaters to eat? And so what they're having to do is rely on to-go orders and or carry-out. The problem with all these third-party apps is they're losing anywhere from 20 to 40 to 45% of revenue from the fees and the commissions to these third parties. So we're kind of launching a Here For You campaign where the salesmen who are sitting around waiting for these Glengarry leads to show up that aren't really going to exist in a pandemic, go out there and old school hit the pavement with these brochures for restaurants, offering them a short-term lease with high miles, long enough to get them through the bulk of the pandemic. They may have a car sitting around for a little bit, but at the same time, when you do the math of how much that's going to cost you versus the commissions you're possibly losing, it allows you to maintain your profitability while also keeping your employees hired and employed, allowing the servers to gain tips and continue to generate revenue when they might not have a job at all. And so we just launched that actually this week. I just got all the creative for it. I have a meeting actually a couple hours after this chat with the Illinois Restaurant Association to see what we can do with them. And, really trying to see if we can partner locally with our restaurants to help them thrive as well.
That's interesting. ABC now stands for always be COVID instead of always be closing, doesn't it?
Right. Right. And that's a thought, is how can we help the community? How can we help, our customers as well as prospective customers, right? And so the other side of that too is just making sure that we don't pound our database. I mean, just think of your inbox, my inbox. How many emails am I getting from every company out there about what they're doing and this and that? So that was kind of okay the first several months. Now it's
Right.
it's extended on beyond, where it's like, what can we do that stands out a little bit differently? And so we were initially going to launch in Q4 a really aggressive quick lease program, which I was excited for. We have a beautiful asset that we invested in. But the sentiment around here was almost that of like April, May, where people are getting scared to come out again. It's Thanksgiving. They don't want to risk exposure before seeing family. Numbers are on the rise. There's chitter chatter in Illinois about another lockdown, which is ridiculous, but it still keeps people in home, right? And so we started launching again back from May, our shop online and Muller delivers. And only recently have I really started pushing that quick lease, because again, November was okay, but it wasn't as bad as April, but it was nowhere near the volume of May. And
Right.
so we've started doing that messaging immediately. And already for December, we look like we're going to be closer to a May month than obviously November, which is
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears here. So let's talk about that. You're planning on putting more investment in just driving more organic first party leads away from some of
that's
the
the other thing
big
too. So
companies
yeah,
you
I
have.
meant to I
Yeah.
meant to talk about that. So one of the other
Yeah.
things that helped us really succeed in the start of the pandemic was obviously our third parties reduced their costs for all dealers across the country, which was a huge help. So if there's any third party team members listening, thank you. We appreciated that. And I'll say that on behalf of the industry. But also at the same time, making sure that we had our SEO in order. And that's something that you need to prepare for well in advance of an immediate need. So we've invested in search engine optimization in our stores for years. And we do not only just your on-page SEO, we do back-end SEO, local SEO, we do it all. So come that March, April, May, where our PPC, our AdWords, our digital spend dropped, it was our SEO and organic that carried us through the bulk of that. And we continue to invest heavily into our SEO strategy and our SEO coding of our website. We don't use our website to do it, not because they don't do a good job, but I feel like when you hire an SEO, it needs to be someone that's something they specialize in. And that's huge. You're going to hear more and more about this as you attend these virtual conferences and these chats as SEO. And I feel like it was something that we all took very seriously years ago. But then all of a sudden it was all these new little bells and whistles of digital marketing that kind of took the attention. But at the core, it's that SEO that's going to carry you through for long-term recognition.
It's a very foundational element. And I almost got to think for many dealers, it can seem overwhelming because you're competing with the same SEO teams of some of the largest companies in automotive. So how does a small dealer like put together a plan to compete against all the major players, Carvana, CarMax, Vroom, if you're essentially trying to attract the same amount of eyeballs organically?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think about our SEO and I think about our pages. I think about the pages that rank in the content that we have. And I think of searches that I do as a test. I don't really feel like I'm competing against Carvana. They're too national, right? They're not super localized the way that we are. Um, Following best practices, making sure that you work with someone that truly understands how SEO operates. And I'm not just talking about backlinks, but the actual schematic markup and the snippets and rich data in the back. That's huge. We have pages that we code that within a few weeks begin ranking on Google. And we also like to use a lot of unique URLs to direct to our main site as well, so we can track the effectiveness of those campaigns through referral links as well as direct. How do you compete with the big dogs? It's just persistence and consistency. It's not something you can do for 6 months, decide you don't want to pay anymore, stop, and then go back to it. It's something you have to consistently do over and over and over again. And you need to think like a consumer. You need to ask questions. You need to answer questions. It can't just be 2020 Honda Civic LX. It's got to be, what is a lease? To answer these questions, these contextual questions that consumers are asking when they're typing and they're searching.
Yeah, for sure. So then thinking back to this, as you guys shift and put more investment in your own first party leads away from some of the larger third
Yeah,
party
I'll be the
folks there.
first one to say it. I am so
Yeah.
excited, Matthew. We are firing TrueCar. I had been horrified to actually get rid of them because initially they came out of the gate and they were phenomenal. They were strong. And this is not just a slam on TrueCar, but it's a matter of the pay per performance. While I'm paying for these sales, they're no longer the only point of attribution. And frankly, after losing USAA, they're not of great value to me. Am I still a little nervous to do this? Absolutely. That's why we're doing it in January and February, because we'll be able to try it, test it, and I'd be happy to come back in a few months and talk about how things are going with the cut. But we're going to focus heavily on the SEO side. We're going to have content specific to online shopping. We're going to have very specific, true kind of keywording and values that you get when you go direct to the dealer versus say a TrueCar. And our pricing is just as competitive as when we were on TrueCar. The goal here is to really try and capitalize on that traffic in other ways before they even get to that platform.
Yeah.
The other third parties that are out there, we're also evaluating. It's how can we beat them? The problem is damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? It boils down to, and I tell anyone who's listening and watching this, when you're doing your strategic planning for the quarter or for the month, ask your third parties, what is their marketing strategy? Where are they spending their dollars? How are they spending their dollars? What is their marketing plan? Because if they're not marketing in your backyard, there's no point spending money with them because you're not going to get the return. You're not going to get that traffic. And if you look at their marketing plan versus ebbs and flows of data of traffic from those sources, you'll see that it correlates to when they spend. So if you look at like your Q3, when a lot of the third parties stop spending to recover from all the discounting, you'll see that there's a correlation there as well.
And so, not too much of a curveball here, but when you think about first party and putting more emphasis on those leads, how does trade pending fit into that picture for you guys?
Well, you're my trade tool, right? So you guys are a partner of ours that tags our inventory with different call outs, such as unique, rare find, new, only a handful in the market. So that's really important. But when we do campaigns for we want to buy your car, sell us your vehicle, get an instant quote now, get an estimated trade value. Obviously, we're going to direct them to a landing page that TradePending is on, so we can gather that information from the consumer, give them an estimated trade, and kind of move the process that way.
Yeah, got it. All right. So where's my little list of questions here? Let me pull this thing up. Next up here. Okay. What's the big picture look like for the automotive landscape in 2021?
Survive. I'm just kidding. Thrive. Yeah.
Survive and thrive,
2020
right?
was one of those years where I think we would all like to kind of just put it behind us, right? There are many dealers who thrived the entire year. Some really took a hit. Others have been able to manage and just kind of copacetically get through it. For us, for 2021, for me, I'm looking at it as a huge year of growth. And I'm not talking from 2020. I'm looking at like 19 numbers, right? And so what I want to do is get hyper aggressive on the local front. My GMBs are all getting completely overhauled. Again, Google My Business. You're going to hear a lot about this in the space. It is so imperative to make sure that is buttoned up, that you have one for sales, one for service, one for parts. Your reviews from each department are going into those different pages that you're building out. So continuing to invest in our GMB strategy, our organic strategy. You're actually going to see that we're going to pull more away from Google AdWords and put more towards video. The idea of that is digital drives traffic, right? So the more digital and the more video that we have will drive more traffic to our website through either search, such as keywords that they find in the ads, or through direct, MullerHonda.com or whatever the unique URL might be. We're going to launch a few different programs in 21, one being obviously this restaurant one that we're starting off now. I'd like to see that really take off, between now and the end of January, and really focusing on the customer experience, right? So I think we talk about this all the time. We all think that we have an amazing customer experience, but in the end, a lot of customers still feel like the process is severely fragmented, and somehow streamlining that and making it more efficient from basically cradle to driveway, and partnering with the right partners for digital retailing, obviously the financing side, and the delivery.
Yeah, so it seems like almost all of, a big chunk of the dealers out there can deliver a start to finish, buy a car online process, but maybe suffering from a lack of just awareness or perception that can't be done. Whereas you can just go to Vroom or go to Carvana and do that magically, right?
It can be done. And I have to tell you, I've used a lot of different tools and technology. And I have to tell you, majority of people may start that process to streamline once they get in the dealership, but they're still wanting to come in. They're not, we're doing a handful, 5, 6, 8, 10 deliveries a month. Not a huge number. More people want to come in and still have that experience, but they want to come in and they want to leave. They don't want to be there for 3 hours. In and out, 45 minutes, hour, maybe an hour and a half. And that's really what the goal is. And so going into 2021, I'd really like to focus on trying to get in and out in an hour for all of our customers. And I think just by expediting that process in itself will naturally, word of mouth will spread. Hey, if you want to get in and out, you're looking for a Honda Muller. They've got everything buttoned up. There's this shop online, and it'll kind of spread naturally.
Yeah. Any other structural or major changes you see happening in automotive?
There's so much going on. Hard to answer that. We've obviously got the Carvanas in the rooms, and these guys. You've got Car Gurus, who just announced an acquisition of a tech company that helps dealers acquire vehicles. I think there's going to be some more M&A across the industry for sure. Hard to say. I think everyone. It's hard to say. What I'd really like personally is to try and spend 21 of these chats really educating dealers more granularly on how to buy their advertising, how to partner with vendors, how to have the conversation to look at them point blank and say, you're out of your mind. I'm not paying you that much. Well, what do you mean you're not paying us that much? Well, let's break down your fee. Your fee is X. Your margin is Y. You're looking at CPM. There's no way that costs that much, right? And so being able to have these conversations with your vendor partners not only allows you to get a better rate or a better buy, so it gives you more advertising, it also allows a deeper connection with them, right? Because they know that you know what you're talking about. There's just so many dealers out there that really don't understand a lot of what's going on. And I feel like a lot of vendors just kind of, I say pull the wool over their eyes, but take them for a ride. When you have the knowledge to have that granular conversation, you'll get better return for sure.
Yeah, so it certainly helps coming from the other side of the table when you've been out selling these solutions to dealers. You understand a little bit more the ecosystem and how it jives.
Absolutely. The biggest thing here is, a lot of different companies that are out there focus on different metrics and different KPIs, like cost per view, or no one talks about what's known as CPM. And if you take anything away from this conversation, CPM is cost per mention. It's cost per 1,000 impressions, essentially, right? And a CPM can vary anywhere from a couple bucks to $50 to $100 to wherever it is, depending on the space of which you're buying, whether it's TV, connected, display, premium display networks, lower end, low grade networks. Knowing what a CPM average should be and what you're actually getting from a CPM value from these vendors and partners and agencies will allow you a much stronger marketing position. And I'll give you this as an example. Let's say an average premium CPM can be anywhere from $6 to $10, maybe $12. If you don't know how to ask these questions, you're going to pay a $2,000, $2,500 management fee, give this partner $10,000 to manage, and they're going to tell you what your cost per view is, which is pennies to the dollar. They're going to tell you what your click-through rate is, which is amazing, and that's based off the creative and the audience. But they're not really going to talk about that CPM. But when you say, well, okay, that's great. And how many impressions? Oh, my CPM was $28. Wow, you're caking in a solid $15.
That's pretty pricey there.
In pure margin. So you're getting less marketing, right, for the dollars that you're paying.
Yeah.
And that's, if I talk about this too much, I'll probably have a target on my back at the next conference. But I think that the more educated as dealers become, the more that this can kind of streamline across our industry. You've got one partner that might charge 40%. Another one charges 10 to 12%. One says, we don't charge fees. We just spend your money and here's the results. It's baked in somewhere.
Right.
Every business needs to be profitable, but be smart about it.
So
that's how we maintain profitability, right? Think about it.
Indeed.
All day.
So what are your top 3 performing marketing channels in 2020, and what do you think that's going to change in the next year?
So again, it depends on what is it that you're looking for. Are you looking for traffic? Are you looking for obviously you want good quality traffic? Are you looking for leads? I kind of look at the overall big picture. Video does very well for us. Our view through metrics are generally pretty strong. View through is once they get exposed to the video, do they come back to the website?
Where
right?
are you distributing those videos? Just on site, on YouTube, on
No, so
social,
we have
anywhere?
YouTube, social. I do OTT. I also have them out on Amazon. I do some partnership with local media like ABC, NBC. That's my mass media. I know that it's not in market shoppers. That's just kind of like my broad message out there. And then with dialing it to different actual platforms, that's where I go into the in market. So majority of all of my advertising is in market, down funnel shoppers. And from there, I even segment further to say, okay, I'm looking for sedan shoppers. Here's this message. I'm looking for SUV shoppers. Here's this message, right? I'm looking for people who might be in that middle, and here's the value message. And so being able to segment your audience appropriately and working with partners who can do that is so key. And using tech, I just I can't stress enough how important technology is to streamlining these efficiencies, because it thinks exponentially faster than any of us can.
Amen. All right, we're approaching the end of our half hour here. If there's any questions, throw them into the Q&A. We'll give some folks a minute or two to
Sure.
type that in. I don't know, is any final thoughts, parting wisdoms?
There's so much. I could spend a day just trying to educate
It's tough to contain the.
Yeah, I think really when you think about it going into 2021, ask yourself, would I want to watch my ad? Would I want to click on my creative? Does what I'm putting out there in the atmosphere something that would appeal to me? Would it appeal to my children if you're older? Mine are younger, so who cares? But if you have adult children, would my children be distracted from whatever they're doing on 10 devices to pay attention to me for 5 minutes?
No, then nothing can pull them away from those
20
devices.
seconds,
Let's
right?
be real about that. Yeah.
So let's say if not, let's say you've got 20 to 30-year-old children. Here's the question. What are they on, and how can I interrupt them? How can I be a little bit disruptive but not over the top?
Yeah.
So in the end, really make sure that you're standing out. And the one thing I have to say is spend a little money on the production of some of your spots. It pays off in dividends. Do something that's kind of evergreen that you can use for more than just a month. See if you can create something that's really amazing for 6 months. Because when you're only targeting those in-market shoppers, they're only going to see your ad for a couple months. Then it's on to a new crop of prospects. And so you can use that same content over and over and over again. And I have some amazing stuff that I've created. So if anybody ever wants to see any of the creative that we've done or invested in, I'd be happy to share it. But generally, we get within the first 60 days, we'll have 130,000 hits on a new video on YouTube. And our view throughs, again, are generally well above the national average. And then the actual completion rates are between 30 and 40%, which for video is pretty good on YouTube.
All right, first question coming in here. So how effective is your dealership blog? And a follow-on question, do you have a dedicated social media person?
Okay, so we don't do any of the blogging. And I think that blogging is important if it's done with a proper cadence and the content is actually relevant. The reality is, think of yourself. Do you really care about something on a dealership blog? Are you really going to go to a dealership and check their blog out on a routine basis? The answer is no. So how relevant is that? How relevant, sorry, I was interrupted. How relevant is that, right? But as far as social media, we go back and forth. We do have an agency that helps us out with some of the back end advertising. And what I've done with huge success is we found a 22, 23-year-old salesperson who is all over social media. They live on their cell phones. And I said, hey, how would you like to own our social media channel? How would you like an opportunity to post things that we approve, and you get to handle all those leads from your posts? I'll put some money behind it on boosts. And that's been a huge success for us. And so we have age doesn't really matter, but we have a young sales female who is killing it. And over the pandemic, no one really wanted to do chat internally. So I gave her chat and I gave her social media. She went from being a 14, 15 car a month girl to 30, 35 cars, May, June, July, and August. And now she's averaging about 20. So the answer to that is, if you can get someone in-house to do it, hands down, highly recommend it.
Awesome.
If you find someone who's as passionate about it as you want to be, that's your best match.
All right, one more question for you. So what did you mean by third party not playing in a backyard? Like if not ditch them. For example, I have a provider that said they spent money in our market, but most of the leads are tough coming from the eastern part of our state over 200 miles away.
Yeah. So the question is, let's go into your market. So generally, if you're talking to your sales rep, they're not going to have this information. You need to look at them and say, I need you to get your marketing director or someone from the marketing team on this call. And I want to know exactly where you're pinpointing your marketing dollars. Because just like us, when we get to select zip codes and markets and radiuses and areas, so do every one of these third parties. And they should be able to tell you exactly on a map where their ads and where their marketing is taking place. If you're getting leads from 200 miles away, my guess is they're not spending it in your backyard. They're spending it in overall general backyard.
Awesome. Well, we are at our time limit. It's been 30 minutes of a wonderful fire pit chat. Great. Thank you for coming today. We much appreciate it.
Sure.
And everybody, we'll send out a recording. You'll have our contact information in as well. So if you have more questions, you know who to reach. Thanks,
Real
everybody.
quick, Matthew, I just want to say if anyone has any further questions or they want to have some conversation about this, please reach out to me on email. I often get hit up by colleagues in the industry on Facebook, and I love helping anyone out that I can because coming from that agency side, there's just so much to learn.
Awesome. Thanks again, everybody. And thank you, Gray. See you soon.
Take care. Happy holidays, everyone.